Welcome, everyone, to our podcast today. My name is Mark S. Gardner. I'm the managing partner for Retire Well Dallas here in Dallas, Texas, but we have clients all over the country. And my guest today is a dear friend, Isaac Shutt. Now, Isaac, I want to go ahead and just kind of give a little bit of a prelude before we get into talking here. But imagine, folks, an attorney meticulously crafting a beautiful, ornate box, a masterful design. But if the client fails to fill it with the essential financial components, that exquisite framework remains empty, devoid, and purpose. So collaborating with an attorney doing estate planning and CPA who possesses a deep understanding of the laws, these professionals go beyond just merely form filling, but they strategically leverage the intricacies of the tax code to benefit their clients. Folks, there was an actor and president, Ronald Reagan, our 40th president of the United States, and he only worked 2 movies a year. It took him 3 months to do a movie, and he got paid $100,000 per movie. So quite a bit difference in earnings back then than there are today, and so was the taxes. So if a person earned $200,001, they would actually pay 94%. Yes, 94% tax rate. Now, going back to when baby boomers started being birthed, everyone, it was as high as 70%. And because of our 34 trillion national debt, taxes are likely to go up here in the future. And your wealth is tied into your 401k, your IRAs, and other retirement plans. So think of it as a ticking time bomb. So our goal at Retire Well Dallas is to work with professionals to offset those taxes and implement various strategies for the tax codes. And my guest today is a friend, Isaac Shutt. His law firm is a premier law firm working in the estate planning, also trust, wills, probate law, and guardianship, and using Texas LLC formations. He does comprehensive tax planning. His firm is renowned in real estate and small business law. And of highly experienced estate planning attorneys, I think it's important that you get the right format of your legal work. So we work with, like I said, CPAs and tax attorneys. If you don't have one, we have one for you. Now, I'll tell you a quick story. I have a friend named Dennis, and I gave him an idea of his retirement account taking money out of his 401k plan. His IRA, and paying his contribution to charity first from those RMD requirements. And he would get ultimately more money in the end by doing it. And the question was, why doesn't my CPA tell me this? So I said, Dennis, tell me, what does your CPA do for you? And what do you pay him for? And he said, well, I pay him to do my taxes. Well, folks, there are many CPAs that are excellent at doing the taxes, but it's very important, a teamwork approach. And that's where Isaac comes in from the attorney side, doing the legal forms and so forth, and the CPA. So we all work in a team effort. Isaac, I'd like to introduce you and thank you very much for being part of our podcast today.
Well, thanks so much, Mark. And I can echo a lot of what Mark has said. In our legal practice, we see a lot of people who, on the professional side of things, might sort of step outside of their lane. So, for example, sometimes we see a CPA that really steps into doing some legal work. And sometimes we see financial advisors that step into CPA work. And so it's important to have that team of professionals because you want to have the right professional for the right job. And that's why having an experienced professional is really important, because it's not just about, what is the answer under this particular code or under this statute. From my perspective as an attorney, it's also knowing who to ask when there's a tax question, or if somebody asks me about a particular financial tool, whether that's a life insurance policy of some sort, or how an IRA might be used, or a Roth IRA. Those are things that we don't do, but I know I can pick up the phone and call Mark because that's his wheelhouse. And I know likewise with Mark, he may know some of the tools that we often use in our legal practice, like trusts and wills and powers of attorney. But instead of trying to put paperwork together himself, he knows, pick up the phone and call Isaac. So there's really a value to that network and knowing the right experienced professionals that are right sized for your particular needs. So Mark, thanks for the introduction. And I enjoy working with you because you are the professional who's got this network, this team approach that really serves clients really, really well.
Isaac, let me ask you a question. When somebody comes to your firm, obviously everybody is unique and different, but are there maybe 3 types of concerns that kind of stick out for the majority of people out there? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, a lot of times, over 90% of the time, people are going to come to my office when they have some sort of need. And that's fine. That's what we do. And we're glad to get to know people. But I would say, number one, a lot of people are interested in not just sort of who gets what when I pass away, but what happens if I'm alive but not doing well. We all sort of know that an estate planning attorney like me handles a will or a trust, which kind of divvies up assets when I pass. But what if I'm just really sick or I'm incapacitated? Is the government going to be making decisions about my assets? Are they going to be controlling things? Will my doctors be making all of my medical decisions? Or is there some way for me and my family to be making those kinds of decisions? So that's definitely a major concern when people come in. They're interested in, how do I handle things if I'm incapacitated? What's the plan if I'm alive but I'm incapacitated? And we do that sort of in our comprehensive bundle. We have powers of attorney and medical powers of attorney that will help with all of that. Number 2, people are very much interested in sort of how people might inherit when they pass away. So in other words, you can go with sort of a wills-based plan, but of course a will go through probate court. So it's kind of the second concern that people are interested in. They're interested in, how might I avoid probate for my family? I don't want my family to go through all of that expense and hassle and stress of going through courts and attorneys and things like that if I pass away. I want it to be free of probate. And so a lot of the tools that you use, Mark, like life insurance policies or beneficiary designations on your accounts, would bypass probate. And then when it comes to things like the homestead and vehicles, those are more of the tools that we use, like maybe with a trust, to avoid probate. And number 3, people are increasingly interested in asset protection. And I think that's because as time goes on, let's say we have a client who's built up a nice amount of wealth. Maybe they've got some stocks and bonds and some investment properties. And it's great that they've accumulated, but now that they want to retire well, sometimes it's important to protect what has already been accumulated. And so one way that we do that is by creating some LLCs or certain types of trusts that sort of get those things out of your name while you're still the beneficiary of those, but putting them off sort of on an island, legally speaking, so that if you get attacked, those assets can't be reached. So those are three really common concerns that people come into our office, about, and a lot of those pair with what you do in your day-to-day practice.
That's correct, Isaac. You know, in January of this year, many people don't realize, but 12,000 people turned 65. And if you look down the road, by 2030, there's going to be 70 million people turning 65 or older. And, I want you to think about some people listening to this podcast may own their own business. And let's say they get either silent partner or a partner, and that partner puts up dollars like 100,000, $250,000, or $500,000 or more. And let's say they have an agreement that they will get 25% of the profits, Isaac. But what ends up happening is they have a caveat in there that down the line, if that business becomes more profitable, then they can actually go in and increase that share, maybe 30%, maybe 50%. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute, what does that have to do with taxes? Well, we have Congress, and Congress just threw a monkey wrench into retirement planning. It used to be that you had to start taking your retirement at 70 and a half, depending on your age. Then it moved up to 72. And the Secure Act 2.0 made it go to 73, 74, and 75, depending on your date of birth. Well, what does that mean? That means the government wants you to continue putting in more money in your retirement account. And the reason being is that more and more of these people are maxing out their retirements. And we're telling people that's not the way to go. If your company matches 3%, 5%, or 6%, that's all you should do. There are alternative ways, and we can show you. And right now, you've got a window of an opportunity where individuals, I believe, Isaac, is it like 12,900,000? Now, everybody doesn't have that type of net worth, but those that do, anything over that amount per person, they're liable for taxes. And so in your retirement plans, it's very important. You've got a 2-year, because of the tax codes back in 2017, it goes into the sunset rule January of 2026, and it drops down to 5.5 million. Well, I guess with inflation, it could be closer to 6.5 million. Well, what does that mean to folks? That if they don't do the right planning through your documents and formulating that, then what ends up happening is they're going to pay a heck of a lot more in taxes down the line, and their families. Now, what we're doing here at Retire Well Dallas is we're helping people do Roth conversions. And there's also what is called alternative Roth. And we're helping people save millions upon millions of dollars by doing it correctly. So, how do you help people ensure them and the families that after you build that incredible box that you do for them, that they do what should be formulating the right documents and the right usage of that box? How does your firm help ensure that they do take care of that, Isaac?
Well, often, if I'm doing a really good job, it actually starts with a conversation with you, Mark. I mean, we want to hear from them about, from the financial professional, we want to hear what level of assets does this person have and what are those assets? Because the exposure to the estate tax that you were referring to, and also the exposure to sort of creditors or lawsuit will depend on how those assets are, currently held. Now, the nice thing is with things like IRAs and 401ks and certain insurance policies is that they can be very tax friendly, not only during your lifetime, but after you pass away, if it's done right. And the same goes with life insurance policies. A lot of times, I think life insurance policies, especially creative ones, of course, there's a lot of options now that didn't exist before. Life insurance policies can be overlooked, but a lot of times a life insurance policy would be a good way to go to sort of protect your assets and to minimize the estate tax that your family might face. So now, again, those particular tools are not in my sandbox. The tools that I might utilize would be for things like, again, your homes and your other investment properties, like your rental properties and things like that. And increasingly so, people are using trusts and LLCs, and even better yet, oftentimes an LLC to hold certain assets with that LLC held by a trust. And that is such a beautiful way of doing things because, again, it keeps those assets out of the probate court, tends to be very tax friendly, and it's just so streamlined and automatic. If something happens to you, whether that's because you're incapacitated, whether you've gotten sued, or whether you pass away, there's already a legal protocol, a plan in place for dealing with any one of those scenarios.
Well, Isaac, one of the things that impressed me very much about you and your law firm is that you don't just deliver a wonderful document, a series of documents. You actually make sure that these folks utilize those documents and put the right information and accounts and things in there. And we also discussed something that also is important is a periodic review. And you'd be surprised how many people, even in their retirement accounts or life insurance, things change. We had a unique kind of situation, and it's not really unique today. You have the Brady Bunch. And so a guy funds his retirement and he forgets to change the beneficiary from his previous wife to his new wife. And that could be a very sticky situation. We had a case where we came in later. It was $2,750,000 death benefit. And the present wife wasn't too happy after hearing that he didn't change the beneficiary. And I can't tell you how many times we've brought in new clients and they say, well, the IRA department has my information. Well, I had a case going back several years, head of Ernst & Young, their wealth division and estate planning department, the gentleman, when he passed, they couldn't find his 401k beneficiaries. And so they had to move it over into a trust, and the son had to take it out over a 5-year period. So again, working in concert with folks like you, we make sure that these documents are periodically updated. And, I'm certain that you come across situations where somebody in the family may not be judicious in knowing how to manage money, or the individual, unfortunately, is on drugs, or an individual may have some disabilities. And you had told me that your firm takes into account these issues and helps counsel.
I mean, you said the word, it's counsel. I mean, people can go online and get forms and things like that, but that's not really a substitute for having, a professional actually look into things for you. That's counsel. That's different. If somebody goes online and uses some form generator for a will or something like that, that person is acting as her own attorney, which is fine if that's what you want to do. If you want to be your own attorney, that's okay. But I can tell you this, there are a lot of things that you don't know. And there are a lot of things that are learned through experience. And Mark, you just mentioned a couple of them. One is that, when we sit down with a client, it might seem like we're just having chit chat and getting to know you and having a good time. But actually, when I'm meeting with a client and doing that chit chat, what I'm doing is issue spotting. So I'm getting to know you, but also learning about what special things that you might not have thought of. What special things can I do to make a plan that really works? So, for example, in your scenario where you said maybe we have somebody with a disability or who's maybe a beneficiary or prospective beneficiary that's not very good with money. That's sort of a common thing. Well, a lot of times I'll ask an open-ended question like, tell me about your kids. I understand they're grown up. Are they doing well in this world? And a lot of times by asking sort of that prodding question, what I hear from the client is, well, my daughter's a sweetheart, but she's terrible with money and is really not very good at picking men. Well, that creates a planning opportunity for me because I go, well, maybe this person would be interested in a trust where if my client passes away, that daughter won't inherit a big lump sum. Maybe she'll get some money out over time. Maybe we want to protect that inheritance in the event that she divorces later in life. So by having a conversation, I can kind of custom create a plan that works really, really well for those specific concerns.
Well, we've had some joint cases, and a lot of times families, when they want to do certain things and their blessings, you can't do it from the grave. And so you've got to make sure that you set these things up properly. And one of the things that we've done with you in concert is use trust companies. And there are some trust companies that we can recommend that are very cost efficient for the client, but more importantly, we get everything in line on their assets ahead of time. But here's the key. Upon the death of the individual, that's when it goes in force. So pre-planning is very important. And, things change. And the only thing, Isaac, that stays constant in life is change. And if you don't embrace it, you don't live to it and through it properly, you're going to miss something. And I want to tell you, it's been always a pleasure knowing that I have somebody out there that is working in concert with us to make and ensure that our clients do the right thing for themselves, for their legacy, and their families. And so I think it's important for people to know how to get in touch with you, Isaac, and your law firm. So if you'd be care enough to share with us your email and your telephone number.
Thanks, Mark. And people can absolutely reach out to us for any sort of Texas estate planning and asset protection. Our phone number is 214-302-8197. And also our website is a wealth of information, and you can also reach out through the website and also schedule a meeting with one of our attorneys, and that's shuttlawfirm.com. So that's SHUTT lawfirm.com, and you can reach out through the website. And also, there are literally hundreds of helpful articles on that website about what we've discussed today.
Well, I'm so glad that you honored me to join me in this podcast today, because the most important thing is educating the public and showing them the right path to take. There are situations out there that people come into and then they go, I guess I'll call it hearsay. They'll ask somebody and then get misinformation. And that's the worst thing. And a lot of times they go to the internet and it may be partially correct. It's not exactly correct for their situation. So like Cinderella, or in a man's case, Cinderfella, we want to fit the right shoe and make sure that we do the right thing for the individuals. So again, I'm Mark Gardner. I'm founding partner and managing director. We've got 4 people on my staff that are willing to work with you, guide you, to help you mitigate your taxes, and to make sure that your retirement is stress-free and tax-free if we can, if you qualify. Folks, we have a saying, the most important thing is income is the outcome that matters in retirement. You can reach me or my folks at 214-762-2327. Our website is retirewelldallas.com. Thanks, folks. It's been a pleasure talking with you today. And if you need help or want to get a second opinion, feel free to contact Isaac or me. Talk to you and hope to see you soon. Thanks for joining us today.